So you came here on the idea of astral projection and learning that, and you're going to get that. But what I find is ultimately important, because we're physical beings, is to have an in-body experience too. And that's all about presence. It's learning how to be really comfortable with who you are, your character, know who you are, so you don't easily get lost in other people and other things. Being able to understand where your energy begins and somebody else's begins. And realizing that, we're not islands. We are interconnected. All minds are joined on a deeper level of consciousness. So we're going to really discuss the wholeness that needs to be discussed. All the sort of stuff that we've sort of buried and compressed into our flesh, into our energy. Realize that the only way to really become the mature, evolved, adult state of consciousness that we all desire to be, we have to look at this stuff. We have to look at it. We have to realize that intellectualizing this stuff is not enough. The healing journey involves the emotions, and learning to be able to sit with your pain long enough to do something with it, to sit with other people's pain long enough without trying to fix them. A real sign of how insecure we are is when somebody starts to be vulnerable and they share their feelings, and the quicker you are to try to fix their problems, the more pain you are actually in yourself. Learning to sit with somebody else's pain without immediately trying to fix them, without trying to intellectualize their feelings. Learning that ultimately it's learning to cherish their feelings. Because when they're in that state of vulnerability, they need to feel yours too. They need to feel that you actually understand, through things like empathy, that you get them, that you've, in some way, maybe you haven't had exactly the experience they're sharing with you, but you've had similar things in life, and you understand it. It really opens up connections like a cosmic can opener. And you start to be able to have communications with people where real healing work can actually take place. Does that make sense? So I hope you get a lot from this, and there will be plenty of time to ask questions. So if there's anything that you'd like to talk about, write it down. There will be appropriate times to talk about it. I'll make sure there's times for Q&A. If there's something you don't understand as I'm talking, it's related to what I'm saying, then please put up your hand and ask the question. If it's something that's just come to your mind, like, I'd like to see if Todd has an answer for this, I'd love to answer the question if I can. But again, questions that aren't related to what we're talking about in that moment, write down on your notepad, and we'll get back to it at another time. Okay? Okay, so astral projection. Let's focus on the topic at hand. So for me, I approach this as a 3-step process. I want to get very clear about what I want to do. I want to understand the purpose for why I want to do that. And then it's all about ritual, which is the practice. The thing that you're going to literally do every single day to ensure that you start to achieve results. It's like with manifestation. Your manifestation powers are equal to your manifestation knowledge applied. It is exactly the same with everything else in life. Anything you learn, it's about literally taking that from non-applied reality to applied reality. It's like with spirituality, in the sense of sometimes we know we need to say sorry. We know we need to make amends. That's non-applied spirituality. Knowing is not enough. It's the doing. It's taking the action. That's applied spirituality. This is when we actually start to grow. Because a lot of us, we intellectualize this stuff and we think we're actually doing the healing work. We've read a book and we're like, I know now. This stuff is fixed. And it's like, no, that's just the beginning of the journey. That's the start of the conversation that you need to have with all these different parts of yourself, with other people. And for a lot of us, we've had things come and go in our lives, either through physical death or relationships breaking up, projects going wrong, and we haven't taken the time to actually grieve, have a grieving period for this stuff. And there's a process for that. And sometimes we get stuck in certain areas and we don't even realize that we're stuck. It's the same with astral projection. So everything we talk about today will apply to your physical life in order to help you create the perfect space to be able to have an astral projection practice. Because like with most things, people come to workshops with the best of intention to apply what they learn. And they go home and they do not make space for it. They do not do the healing work necessary to actually apply the knowledge that they're learning. And then they feel that once they've gone home, they can do it on their own. You might find that, if you've gone to a counselor before, or if you've gone to a mentor around business stuff, and you start to actually make progress, and then suddenly you stop going to see the counselor, or you stop going to see the mentor, that is not the time to stop. That is the time to actually stick with it, continue with the guidance. So there'll be a reading list that I can give you so you can continue with whatever we've sort of set as the foundations today. I can recommend other people's work that you can check out, but it's around evolving this practice as much as possible, realizing that everything you've learned up to this moment applies to astral projection. Because again, nothing's separate, everything's interconnected. And the more that we become aware of that, we realize that this is all inclusive. There's a way I can include my Reiki knowledge and wisdom into astral projection. There's a way I can, sort of look at something like the Kundalini process or meditation and apply it within astral projection. Okay, so it's about a sort of top-down practice instead of a bottom-up practice. A bottom-up practice is where we learn something new and we just sort of keep practicing from the level that we've learned it. Whereas with a top-down practice, we're always willing to learn new things. So a challenge that I could give you as an example. So you're here to learn about astral projection, and I would say, okay, well then go out and find one book on the topic, like lucid dreaming, astral projection, remote viewing, deep meditation, because they all have crossover, and read one new book on those subjects every single week for 52 weeks. At the end of 52 weeks, you're going to have so much information, and if you've applied the information that you've learned in 52 weeks, you're going to be, at the end of 1 year, your life is going to be completely transformed because you're applying the knowledge, and applied knowledge equals growth. Okay? So with astral projection, you have to find some space to do it. So you think, okay, well, can you do it in the daytime? Can you do it at night when you're sleeping? Can you do it before bedtime? Can you do it after you wake up? Answer is yes to all of those things. It's about balance. When I'm awake, primarily, this is our grounded reality. This is where our consciousness is grounded when we are awake, on this level. So it's learning to be very present in our bodies, awake in physical reality. But during the day, we actually need to take breaks from our mortal existence. When we take a break from our everyday life, from the drama, we're giving ourselves a moment to go deep into spiritual reality. And in spiritual reality, you will be able to build your power, your strength, to do some healing work. And then when you come back out of your meditation, back out of your astral projection, practice, you will be able to have a better relationship with your waking life and everyone in it, because you're literally taking time to recalibrate. Does that make sense? So for example, if you wake up every single day, most of us in this room probably either last night before bed or this morning after waking up took a shower, correct? Most of us? Because we've been conditioned by society to keep our physical bodies clean. It's a social thing. It's a hygienic thing. How many of us prioritize cleansing our emotions on a daily basis before we go out into the world? Because what do most of us do? We grab coffee, we grab the daily newspaper, and we start to actually entrain our brain and our bodies to the things that we're entertaining ourselves with. And make no mistake, everything that you literally entertain yourself with, you are entraining yourself with. And entraining means calibrating. You're literally calibrating your consciousness. So if you were to have a diet of, let's say, soap operas every single day. You're calibrating yourself with that. You're calibrating yourself with what you see. And what are you seeing? You're seeing people have contempt for one another. You're seeing people be defensive all the time. You're seeing people being stonewalling each other. Stonewalling means shutting down on each other, disappearing on each other, not talking. And you're seeing a lot of criticism. And you're literally entraining yourself with that. Those 4 things I just mentioned are the 4 biggest killers of any relationship. The 4 biggest killers. Contempt, disrespect. Every time somebody says something, you maybe say something like, "Oh, don't be so stupid." That's contempt. Criticizing people. How many times do you find yourself criticizing your partner throughout a day? How many times do you find yourself being defensive instead of vulnerable? Or shutting down? These literally kill relationships. So it's worth knowing. It's worth realizing, okay, where am I picking this up from? Where am I, what am I still doing in my life that's still bringing this stuff about? Because nothing happens by chance. Literally every single choice that you make is creating your reality. Everything that you sweep under the rug is creating your reality more than anything else that you're doing. It's that unsort of resolved stuff that is keeping you into the same patterns. It's scary. There's no doubt about it. When we're looking at our shadow, it's really scary when we see the darkness. Because a lot of times we turn away from the darkness because we don't know what to do with it. We haven't had, the best of role models in our lives. Most of us haven't had the opportunity to have that transformation from childhood to adulthood, that rite of passage, because we don't have the mentors or the role models in our lives anymore that help us actually make that transition properly. To really help us understand that, pain is something that can't be avoided. Suffering is something that can be avoided. We bring about suffering through the use of our own free will, where we use our own free will against ourselves. It's called self-hate. And sometimes self-hate masquerades as self-love. And we need to learn the difference. So this workshop is going to be a lot about shifting from fear to love and learning to have the introspection to be able to see it and experience it and witness it, to be able to realize that's what's happening right now. I'm stuck in a state of fear. I'm dwelling in fear. I've been dwelling in fear for months. I've been dwelling in fear for perhaps years. And to realize that there has to be a moment where you prioritize making that shift from fear to love. Okay? So everything we talk about today is creating the foundation that you need to make the space for astral projection and everything else in your life that you really desire to prioritize. Okay? Like I said, if any question pops up, or like, I wonder if what Todd's talking about can apply to be applied to this area of my life. Yes, because again, everything's connected. Your astral projection practice will affect everything in your life. It can affect it in a good way or a bad way. How many times do you find yourself or a friend oversharing with you? They wake up and they come in and they're talking about, people, some of their friends that are just, or people they know who are just vampires and always taking their energy, and it's like a half an hour of just oversharing information. And it feels like they're just floodlighting you. And you just absolutely feel like, wait a second, you're talking about other people vamping your energy. I feel like you're actually vamping mine right now. There's a difference between oversharing and vulnerability. Vulnerability is where you're in a space to where you feel safe enough to be able to share what you need to share to get help. Oversharing is where we're literally just not taking a moment to realize that we're giving this person too much information. We're overwhelming them. In a lot of cases, the people that we're overwhelming, they don't know what to do with it either. It's like sometimes when discussing truth-seeking stuff, what used to be called conspiracy. If somebody brings an idea to me where it's just full of fear, what am I supposed to do with that? Are you going to give me a solution to go along with that, or are you just literally going to lumber me with all this fear? We really need to look at how we're approaching conversations with people. Some topics you've probably researched for decades. Like me, I've researched things like the deep state, those parts of government that don't want to be seen, those parts of government that create turmoil in our cultures, in our lives, and are programming us. And we can see it, we see that controlling aspect, that control system, and we don't like it. It's just like, I've researched that stuff, but it's an intimate knowledge I've gathered on that. It's very personal, intimate research. If I then share that with somebody who has no clue as to what that stuff is, has never seen the control system, they see the mainstream media as something, as their friend, and they read it every day, they're watching it every single day, and they see it as an authority, something they trust. And if I then suddenly, for 2 hours, start to pour out all these details about how the mainstream media is actually the poisonous press, and they're there to control our lives and manipulate us, do you honestly think you're going to get, the emotional reaction that you're hoping to get? You're not, because there's total incongruency there. This person hasn't had the series of intuitions that you've had. They haven't had the series of experiences that you've had that have led you down that rabbit hole into the rabbit warren itself. So it's really learning to be able to approach people from where they're at. And that means your own inner community, because you have sub-personalities who are going to be thinking to themselves as they're listening to everything I say, there's no fucking way you're getting me to go to another level of reality. That sounds scary. I can barely handle the one that you've got me in here. Does that not make sense? That if you've got parts of you that are already shut down, already feeling alone and isolated, ignored, do you think they really want to play ball in helping you achieve the energy state you need to have an astral projection into the unknown? Really think about that, because people come to these workshops convinced they're just going to fly out of their bodies. And then when they don't, they think, what Todd taught was just crap. I knew it would be. Then the ego comes out, the fear mind. It's just like, I knew it wouldn't work. It only didn't work because, there's healing work to be done. There's vulnerability to be sat in. And that starts with yourself. We hear avatars like Gandhi say things like, be the change you want to see in the world. You know what? That's actually very scary to really look at something like that, because for most of us, we don't really know how that would happen. How can I affect change on that level? How can one person make a difference? It's more become the change. This is a step-by-step process. Being the change really sounds scary. I don't know how to do that. Where's the game plan? I don't see anybody else around me who seems to have the game plan. I see everybody else, in a lot of pain and suffering too. Even my most, amazing spiritual teachers, I see when they have their moments of vulnerability, their lives are crap too. Okay? Sometimes when I give talks in the past, I've made a big mistake by not being really vulnerable and letting people see my icky stuff. The stuff we all want to hide. And we want to hide it because we feel unsafe. We feel unsafe around, people, and we don't want to share stuff. So this is why within the body of my workshops, I think it's important for us all to feel that we do have responsibility. We have a responsibility towards each other, to make each other feel safe, to not bully you, not to pick on you. When you share something, I don't then use what you've just shared as a weapon against you. It's really important when somebody shares something, it literally goes in a vault. Because things like, sharing things, gossiping, with information that was not yours to share breaks trust. Completely and utterly breaks trust. And without trust, somebody will not be vulnerable with you. They feel unsafe. And you might think, well, they've got it all sorted out. They've got no problems. No, they just don't want to share with you because they think you're very unsafe to be around. And I hear things in spiritual circles, people are like, well, we're not supposed to read headlines of newspapers, we're not supposed to read the newspapers or see that kind of stuff. It's like, no genuine spiritual teaching will ever tell you that. No genuine spiritual teaching will say you get to be in a state of denial around the darkness that exists in yourself and in the world. You don't get a free pass on this stuff. What it says is, do not dwell. It says, see it and look at it with love. If you look at it with fear, then you're going to, yes, like the sort of the law of attraction belief systems say, you're going to add something to it, but only if you're dwelling in that fear. The idea is to, when something is brought to you that is that is only missing the one thing that can make everything better, that's unconditional love. So if anything comes to you, comes into your life, which is missing, where that one thing is missing, the universe is basically asking you, yes, okay, fear will come up. That's part of the human experience. But it's learning that it's in that shift, having that emotional strength, by building those emotional muscles to say, okay, yes, this is scary as hell, and I'm probably going to need some help dealing with this and handling this. But I need to shift from a state of fear to where I feel helpless to a state of love to where I can be vulnerable enough to get help. Does that make sense? So if you're feeling like I'm lumbered with belief systems that are just keeping me in certain patterns, then you need new ideas. And you need to practice those ideas on a daily basis, okay? So for me, the 3 steps for astral projection, and the same with a lot of areas of life. Step 1, get really clear about what you want. Really understand. Step 2, why? What's the purpose? Why do I want to do this? Why do I want to have this come in my life? How's it going to serve me? How's it going to serve other people? And 3, the ritual, the daily practice. All right? So it can be very simple. And there are a lot of areas to where you'll get caught up, you'll get stuck, but this is where we then get vulnerable and we ask more questions. Okay? I don't pretend to have all the answers, and I realize that when I do get stuck, it's usually I get unstuck faster when I'm in a state of vulnerability and I'm willing to ask questions. I'm willing to get help. All right? So that's the basis for astral projection too. Okay, so I want you to understand the importance of your beliefs and your intentions, because they can they're physically developing neural pathways in your brain. Everything that you consistently think about is then strengthening those ideas, strengthening those beliefs, and strengthening the emotions that are literally connected to that thought. So that's where we come back to the entrainment idea. Everything that we think about on a regular basis, if this is energy principles 101. So something like law of attraction 101. If you think about something positive or negative, it grows. With enough consistency of mind, with enough consistency of feeling, you are literally growing something. So really think about everything in that way. What am I thinking about? What are the thoughts and the feelings and emotions that I'm having still causing in my life? Because this is manifestation in action. When you're looking in a mirror, whether you're looking in a physical mirror at yourself or you're looking in the mirror in the sense of your life, you are literally looking at yesterday's thinking, yesterday's way of feeling. We have spiritual eyes. And when we learn to see through our spiritual eyes, we can then see manifestation in a whole new light. We start to see that 99% of all manifestation takes place behind the scenes, beyond the evidencing of the 5 senses. So when you're looking in a mirror and you're seeing the landscape of your life and you're seeing yesterday's thinking, but yet you're seeing it still in your life, what's happening? Your 5 physical senses are evidencing your reality and saying, this shit doesn't work. All the stuff that you've learned from, the law of attraction schools, it's not working. Look at my life. It's not shifting. It's not moving. I'm still where I was before I went and started getting the teaching. There's still something that you're still thinking. There's something you are still feeling. There's something you are still doing that is keeping you stuck there. A lot of it is the shame, blame, and judgmental culture that we've developed in our society. Maybe try going 30 days. It doesn't mean you're going to be perfect in 30 days, but 30 days without shaming yourself or another human being, without blaming yourself or another human being, without judging yourself or another human being. It will be hard. It will not be easy. But I promise you, if you're more conscious about it and you're catching yourself, the number of times that we can literally be critical throughout a day. And we all have a certain level of willpower strength that we've developed. So let's say if your willpower strength is like you can put it contain in a jar, and it's 100% full every time you wake up. And let's say the first thought you have, or the first thing you do when you wake up, is you pick up this, and you go right onto something like Facebook, and you go right onto the timeline, and you see everybody else's junk, everybody else's stuff hanging out. You see news pieces about the worst of the worst, and you're like, oh my word, your willpower strength is already being depleted. And then, by the end of the day, when you've got to the point where your self-control is now, being tested, it's being stretched thin. You go into the supermarket, and then you go into the checkout aisle, and they have, what do they call those sort of aisles, as you're literally checking out, that's those stands of crisps and chocolate and everything else. Your willpower doesn't have a chance at that point. Literally, if you're at the base of the jar, the last 5%, you've had it, you're toast. We're going to literally lose self-control. So it's learning that to keep this stuff topped up, that willpower. It's taking breaks throughout the day. It's literally learning to do these small healings throughout the day. So if I'm constantly having a certain thought come up, let's say it's causing feelings of anxiety. So if I have a certain thought that comes up that brings about a feeling of anxiety, and I do nothing to shift from that fear to love, what have you actually done? You've attacked yourself. And that's how you need to look at it. Some words just don't have the potency they should have, like around things like sustainability. When we talk about sustainability these days for our world, it doesn't have the impact anymore. We have to use words like unsurvivable. If we don't make this change as a culture, we will not survive the next millennium. Unsustainable doesn't cut it. Sometimes we're hanging out with people who there's a part of our consciousness really gets that this person's dangerous. This person could be deadly. But if we don't understand that, if we really don't get that, we're going to be in for a painful ride. Spirituality does not say ignore people, move away from people, we outgrow people. Spirituality is basically saying, look, sometimes the most unconditionally loving thing you can ever do is say no. Sometimes it literally is the most loving response you can give somebody is no. No, you cannot continue to hurt me. No, you cannot continue to hurt other people. No, you cannot continue to hurt yourself. I think sometimes people think things like even anger is unspiritual. There's nothing unspiritual about an angry person. What they do with that anger can be very unspiritual and very unloving. If they use their anger as a weapon against other people, there's nothing loving about that. It's like, some of our politicians, like Jeremy Corbyn as an example. Jeremy Corbyn did not get to have a large platform by never getting angry. He got to have a very large platform because he has self-control with his anger. You see some politicians using absolute contempt. Every word is contempt for the person that they're speaking to. Some politicians you look at and they literally get it. They have self-control. They want to say, look, you're a git. You're a jerk. But what do they do instead? They keep their conversation as respectful as they possibly can under the circumstances. And they actually can start to make changes. Because if you don't think people can feel your contempt, even through your body language, you'll be mistaken. So it's the same with astral projection and all these parts of you that they really would like to get involved. They really would like to help you in this process. But there's this experiment. Have any of you heard of it? It's called the rice experiment, where you take 3 jars of rice. Anybody? Yeah? So you can see it on YouTube. It's pretty fascinating. So basically you boil up some rice, get yourself 3 glass containers, and then you put equal portions of rice in each one of those jars. You let it cool down, and then once it's sort of room temperature, put the lids on, seal them up. Take 3 labels. Put one label on a jar that says love. Another label says hate. Another label says ignore. With the love jar, you could do something like, put it next to your bed, and you wake up every day and you're like, for a week, oh, I love you so much. When I'm at work today, I'm going to be thinking about you. I'm going to be thinking about how much happiness you bring into my life, how much you mean to me. I'm really sad that I have to go today and leave you on your own here in the bedroom, but I want you to know how much I love you.
So
Yeah?
it's one of the things involved in relationship breakup as well.
It applies. And then, you're going out your door and maybe you've got your hate jar next to the door. And you're like, I fucking hate you. I wish you were dead. I hope when I come home today, maybe, that the whole house is burnt down and you were inside with it. This is how much I hate you. And then you have your ignore jar. What do you do with the ignore jar? You put it in a dark cupboard, maybe at the back of the house, and you do what it says on the label. You ignore it. After the end of a week, maybe 2 weeks, which jar do you think is going to be the mankiest? Ignore? It is going to be the ignore one. Because at least with the hate one, it's getting energy. When we ignore things, whether it's a problem, a person, a thing, a situation, it literally creates shame around that, whether it's a person or a situation. And when you create shame, you create a dark place. And there is no light. So this is why it's important to realize that if you really want to astral project, if you really want to get the best from anything that you've already learned, there is a deep healing process that we must all walk. There's like a fierce moral inventory of our lives that we really must take. Make a list of the things that literally are at the moment being ignored. Because again, the things that we are ignored are literally creating our lives more than anything else. They're affecting our lives more than anything else because it's actually taking energy to ignore these things. Does it not? Does it not feel? How much energy do you put towards ignoring something? It's actually a big energy expenditure. We're either obsessing over it quietly in our minds and it's not actually being ignored. We're either really anxious about it, so that's really, not getting anything done. It's just creating that energy. And if you're not doing anything with it, it literally is just making it worse in some cases because you're now developed anxiety. You've developed stress. Okay, so one of the solutions that I'm going to give you is this. Gratitude. Okay? We've all experienced something in life called foreboding joy. Does anyone know what foreboding joy is? Okay. Think about these moments where things are going really super well in your life. Yeah? And then suddenly you have a thought of things going really, really bad. Okay? Like a relationship is going better than any relationship ever gone, and then suddenly you start daydreaming about your partner having an affair. That's foreboding joy. And the feelings of foreboding joy are basically suppressed. So joy is in the phrase. It's literally good feelings are being suppressed because there's a part of you that thinks, okay, I don't want this to surprise me. I don't want this to blindside me. So I'm going to repress the good feelings around this now. Think about times when you're sort of angry at one of your partner, or there's some resentment going on, and they say something really funny. And you're like, You're suppressing good feelings, are you not? Let's say their best friend then comes over and says something very similar, and you're like, oh, that's hilarious. How do you think that's going to make your partner feel? So it's looking at this stuff and being willing to realize what's actually going on. They have labels, they have names, they have definitions, and the more informed we become, the more we can start to actually put the pieces together of what's the solution going to be. So when I have moments of foreboding joy, so my wife is down in London. She wanted to come up to Liverpool, but she had client stuff to do. So, both of us have our insecurities around relationship stuff. We've both been in relationships where relationships have ended and things have gone wrong in those relationships. And so it's easy for us to get into these feelings of foreboding joy. So my wife was recently in Switzerland for 3 weeks doing a theta healing course. And, when I'd ring her in the evening time and it would go to voicemail because of the damage that I've had in other relationships, because, I have, suffered, in the past. If I haven't done certain work around my my insecurities, what will come up? What kind of things can come up? Oh my God, she's probably, out having fun with friends, and what if, she's talking to somebody who really likes her ideas, and it's, it's the liking of their ideas and the close proximity, and that can lead to this, and it's just like, when I get to that point, you know what I do now? I stop myself, and I shift into gratitude, and I remind myself how thankful I am to have found a woman who really gets me, who really loves me, who really understands me, who knows how to be vulnerable and make me feel safe, who's got my back, who knows my darkness and loves me anyway. I say that, and I say, thank you, universe. More, please. And I start to shift into love. If I was to stay there in the feelings of, those sort of feelings of insecurity, I can literally start to shift into a state of shame. And that just takes me into a dark place. My wife then calls, and she's like, how you doing? I'm like, oh, I'm fine, darling. Fine. How many times do you hear that word fine? I'm fine. Somebody's basically just saying, I feel unsafe. I don't know how to speak to you right now. I don't want to be judged. I don't want you to use what I'm about to say against me. I don't want you to think I'm weak. And this is a big issue because vulnerability is not weakness. And I think, this is something that men in particular really need to get. A lot of us, we look at love and we think, if I'm unconditionally loving towards somebody, they're going to treat me like a doormat. That is not unconditional love. Okay? Let's get very clear about that. Like I said already, unconditional love, sometimes the most unconditionally loving response is no. So therefore, you do not have to be a doormat. But when you say no with love, it means you're saying no in kind ways, merciful ways, forgiving ways, understanding ways, compassionate ways. What is the point of having a spiritual journey, learning about compassion if you never use it? Understanding an idea and applying an idea are two different things. So I'm being compassionate to myself when I make these shifts from fear to love. I'm being merciful on myself because there will be a part of you that feels, no, you haven't suffered enough yet. We were talking about this just yesterday, where if you've ever had one of those moments, and my 23-year-old daughter, her and I are very similar in nature, and we were having this conversation the other day, and I was using myself as an example, but I knew she would get what I was saying because I could see it going on in her relationship, but I didn't have the level of permission because her and I are still repairing a rift in our own relationship that happened when I left her mother and got divorced, and she's still learning to trust me again. So I have to really sort of be aware of that. And we had this conversation, and I was saying, I have these moments sometimes where people do something to upset me, and then they apologize, and I block them from making amends. I'll kind of like wishy-washy accept their apology, and then I'll still batter them with what they've done after seemingly accepting their apology. And it's almost like you have an angel on this side of your shoulder and a devil on this side. And the angel's like, let them make amends. Accept their apology with compassion. And the devil's over here saying, no, they have not suffered enough yet. And it's literally that, being in that grip of darkness sometimes, because that's how much pain we can be in. We can intellectualize this stuff. Intellectually, we know to cause others pain, we need to be in pain. We all get that. We can spiritualize this stuff. Spiritually, we understand that, yes, all spiritual traditions are asking me to see the innocence in people and not just their guilt. Doesn't make it easy nonetheless. It's the emotional stuff that really starts to help make the shift. When we start to build the emotional muscles, that's when the shift actually starts taking place. And you have to see those emotional muscles just like your physical muscles. We've overworked the intellectual muscles, have we not? Yeah, we've literally intellectualized everything to death, and yet that stuff is still not shifted. I know how to fix this. Intellectualizing it is not enough. It is when we really get that it's in the application itself, in the applying that knowledge, is when things actually shift. And you're going to screw up after applying it the first, second, third time. You're going to screw it up. But this is when you need to have vulnerability and you need to have a sense of humor. All right? So if you haven't got a sense of humor, go and get one. All right? It's important to be able to have those light moments, to laugh, to feel, like in the synchronicity walk that we had last night. There were moments where it really felt like when we followed the white rabbit that had the man that had the black skirt on and the pink top. Yeah, it really felt. We went one direction, and then he got sort of barred from going in a club, so turned away from going in a club. So he went back the other way. And we had to follow him back because we still had minutes on the clock. And it was just like it felt suddenly like the trickster aspect of synchronicity, the trickster aspect of life, which is basically saying, you need to remember that right now you're taking this situation far too seriously, and you're not remembering to sort of step back and get perspective. Step back, take a moment for healing. Take a step back, take a breath. You're holding your breath at the moment. Stop holding your breath. Relax, breathe. It's in breathing you're going to make things better. It's in giving yourself space you're going to make things better, because you're making space to actually be able to recalibrate your entire nervous system. Every thought, every feeling, every action is literally calibrating your nervous system. You might think, well, I don't know how to recalibrate my nervous system in order to get back on my path or to be able to realize what my mission in life is. What's my purpose? Fundamentally, we all share the same purpose. It's to love and be loved. There are so many ways for that to happen, but we block it. We stonewall. We get defensive. We shut down. We criticize people in moments when they're being vulnerable, thinking that that's the moment to cane them. They're being vulnerable. They're not causing me hassle right now, so I'm going to give them everything they need to hear. Right, so you finally sorted your life out, and yet you've left mine in a complete mess. Well, let me fucking give you one for right now, in your most vulnerable moment. It's realizing that that's not going to serve anybody, okay? It's just telling you it's a sign to where you personally are wounded. If you're feeling uncomfortable about somebody sharing their feelings and they're not floodlighting you, they're not sort of oversharing, they're being vulnerable, and you're feeling awkward, that is not the moment where you close down. That's the moment where you literally feel into the energy and like, okay, a button is being pushed here, but that does not mean I push back. It means this is the moment to go into vulnerability, to allow myself to feel the love that's already there. That's what forgiveness work is all about. It's about revealing the love that's already there. The love that's always been there that we've literally just pushed away. Okay? All of this applies to astral projection, I promise you. Some of you have sat some of my talks before, and this kind of stuff is just like what's not being taught in some of our best, practices. Learning how to literally hold a space for yourself and other people. Learning to allow yourself to feel vulnerable so a space can be held for you. We all have our special problems. Those problems where we feel, you can't possibly understand my problems. You put your problems up on a pedestal, and then nobody can actually help you. It's like even the universe can't help you. Like, nobody can help me with this. It's just like, okay, wait a second, slow down. So the universe that created all of this spins all the planets, keeps them in orbit, all this multidimensional reality, keeps it running, and it can't help you with your problem. What's actually happening is you're blocking me from helping you. But you're blocking me because you don't feel safe. Okay? So when the stuff comes up, like you're lying there in your astral projection pose, and you're wanting to go deep, you're wanting to go and meet your guides, and then suddenly a fear comes up, that's when this stuff all becomes important. Does that make sense? Because if suddenly you're lying there and you're starting to go deep and your body goes into paralysis, who's ever woken up from sleep in total paralysis? It's called sleep paralysis. Most of you in this room have experienced that. You literally wake up and you cannot physically move your body. If you're in really the deepest throes of paralysis, you can't even use your vocal cords. You'll probably be there like thinking you're shouting at the top of your lungs, and yet you sound like a little mouse. Help me, help. It's a frightening experience. And it's an experience that really makes you feel helpless, out of control, especially if it's accompanied with the hallucinations. Things that come up where literally it will mirror your deepest fears in that moment. You'll have demons. You'll have the sense of something sitting on your chest, holding you down. We have the old, sort of urban legend about, what do they call it? The succubus, incubus, the old hag syndrome. All of that stuff comes from that state right there. And what's taking place there, if you don't have the knowledge and how to apply that knowledge and what to do next, it's just going to get really, really bad. So understanding all of this stuff before going into these kind of practices can really serve you, because then you won't get stuck for long periods of time. Then you won't want to walk away from it before you even got going. The number of times I've looked on the internet in forums dedicated to astral projection or dedicated to meditation, lucid dreaming, and you find people saying things like, don't go out of your body, there's demons. Don't go out of your body, you'll be taken to dark places and you'll be held there against your will, and this will happen and that will happen. Just don't do it. You'll probably die and you won't even come back. It's just like, wow, I'm not astral projecting. Just put that in the box right now. What's happening there is literally, it's as if you're blaming the sun for not shining, when in reality you're doing this. It's called denial. And when you're denying that there's actually something in you that's bringing that experience about, that's still connecting you to those parts of your shadow, when we deny that that's the reality, we don't get to heal. We don't get to heal that stuff. Does that make sense? So this is why I'm freeloading you with this information, because if you don't know this stuff now, when that stuff like that, the paralysis or having an out-of-body experience and experiencing something dark, you'll probably not want to do it again. And if you want to do it again, what will happen is you'll have a lot of fear around it, and that fear will become unconscious. And then you won't realize that you're being blocked, that you have a block, because a block is an unacknowledged fear. It's an old wound that has never been healed, and every now and again it gets torn open again. Something opens it up, you get triggered, your buttons get pushed, and it literally touches that nerve. And then it causes a feeling, because it's neural pathways and energy pathways, and it literally brings that stuff up. And a lot of times it comes up in ways where we don't recognize it as being connected to, the core initial wounding. Because, things literally, we become like onions. We start to grow all these other layers, and that's all the numbing we do. Instead of confronting this stuff and dealing with this stuff, we just add another layer to our defenses, to the point where we barely feel this stuff. How many times have people, you hear the expression, thick-skinned? We shouldn't have to be thick-skinned. But the problem is we don't know what to do. A lot of us just don't know what to do, so we turn away from it. So this conversation is just helping you get a little bit more perspective, helping you understand that there's a lot of resources to where you can get information to help you start making the shifts that you want to make. So throughout the day, I'm using intention for my astral projection practice. This is big. So I wake up in the morning, I first acknowledge what happened during the night. So I have a journal, and I start to write things down. So if there was something dark, I write that down, I journal it. I then, might take a moment to actually do some healing work around it. I can say things like, I don't understand why I keep having these kinds of experiences, but I'm really willing to understand this. I'm really willing to shift this and to heal this. I'm really willing to receive the help that I need to do that. The help in the form of physical help, the help in the sense of metaphysical help from my guides, through synchronicity, opening a book and it falling off a shelf on just the right page. I'm open to that. But if I do nothing, then nothing gets better. So when I wake up in the morning and there is maybe a dark dream or a dark OB, out-of-body experience, I'll sit with it. I'll journal it. I'll try to understand it, and I'll put out the signal for help. I need help with this. I don't feel I can tackle this alone. I don't feel I can tackle what I experienced last night on my own. I know it was my own shadow. I know it's the darkness within me. I want to understand it. I want to heal it. I need help. So I'll literally put that signal out. And in putting out that signal, throughout the day, I'm reinforcing it. So now I realize that I've put out the signal for help. I've put out the call for help. I know the help is there. It's just like what I said already. The only thing stopping you from seeing it or from getting the help is literally we're blocking it ourselves. It's something we're still doing. So in realizing that, if I then I'm doing that simple recalibration before I even get out of bed. And then I get out of bed, and let's say I'm at the breakfast table, and the thought comes up again, because I haven't instantly healed it. Sometimes we have miracles occur. That's that shift from fear to love in an instant, and a miracle can occur. So miracles do occur. But what in the time when a miracle doesn't occur, because in most cases they don't occur, like manifestation, because again, you're blocking it. It is not really our job to manifest. It's our job to look at the things that are blocking manifestation, because manifestation is a constant reality. Miracles are a constant reality. Synchronicity is an everyday experience. It is blocking, which is stopping all of this stuff. Okay? So that's what we really need to look at. So when I wake up, first thing I do is I journal my experiences. When you're journaling your experiences, you are saying to your subconscious, you are saying to your guides, you are saying to your higher self, I am willing to show up. I am willing to participate in this process of healing. I am willing to take a bigger responsibility. All right? Because self-love, responsibility is literally guided by self-love. Self-control, lack of self-control, is guided by self-hate. So in those moments where you're like, okay, I have a choice to journal this, but also I have to get ready for work. You have a choice. And if you don't give yourself time to make that choice, you've literally acted without self-control. And that is guided by self-hate. Really understanding what's at the foundation of all of that stuff will make a huge difference in whether or not you're going to make these shifts, or whether it's going to take you a lifetime or maybe multiple lifetimes to make the shifts that you can make now, to get the help that you really want to get. All right? It doesn't feel good staying stuck, does it? So it's the same stuff with astral projection. The formula for astral projection is actually very simple. I could give it to you in 5 minutes in a nutshell, and I will actually. All right? I will give it to you in a nutshell, and then I'll give it to you in a more sort of expanded version. But it is really simple. It is literally just all of this stuff that stops us from having the experiences. Like I've already said at the beginning of this discussion, you have an energetic series of bodies, all like nested energy bodies. Like if you think like Russian doll, one within inside the other. You have your physical body, then your etheric body, your astral body. You can these are just labels. They're metaphors for energy, different states of energy. And your astral body can literally operate independent while you're sleeping. And you can literally be having astral experiences every single night, because the astral body, like the physical body, needs to recharge. And it recharges on the level that it's accustomed to getting that recharge, which is what we call the astral. Astral energies helps it actually rejuvenate properly. Like delta sleep, delta waves help our physical brains delegate to the body the rejuvenation that it needs. So without delta sleep, which is the first 4 to 4.5 hours of sleep, the physical brain and body suffers. Without having those moments of recharge, the astral body will suffer too. And we'll then find there are issues within the physical body because those other vehicles, those other energy aspects of us are suffering because they're not getting the energy they need to sustain life within the physical body. Okay? So to have these experiences, it's learning that everything's connected, and therefore you have to approach this in a very holistic way. So first things first, why do you want to have an out-of-body experience? Get clear about this. What do you want to do? So we'll get back to the how to shift from the fear stuff, but I want to start switching more to the astral stuff now. So make a list. What are the things you actually want to do? Make a really long list, a to-do list, a bucket list. I want to meet my guides. I want to go and visit some of the great healing centers that exist on other levels. I want to go to the great schools knowledge schools. I went in the wisdom schools. I went to review my lives. I went to review my life plan. I went to go and recharge in the highest level of my consciousness, my higher self. I want to speak with a non-human intelligence, an alien being. I want to just sit in an astral meadow and chill out. I want to feel like I've been on holiday for a week in a mental space within my mind, and then wake up feeling really recharged and ready for my day. Make a list of the things that you really want and you really need and desire. 10 things minimum. And then really understand, why do you want to do these things? How will they serve me? How will they serve my growth? How will they serve other people? Because I guarantee you, everything that you experience in life, it literally is benefiting everybody else. It's like money. Sometimes we have this poverty consciousness. We have this sort of really bad relationship with money. We see money as being dirty and people who have money as being dirty. And that can literally slow our journey down on the physical level, because money currently is our system of exchange in most cases. You can sometimes hear people say, we should go back to the barter system. We'll exchange pigs and livestock again. It's like, okay, well, first of all, some of us have become, vegans, and we don't want to sort of trade in livestock. Okay, we can trade services, or we can trade other things like, other food, plant-based stuff. Say, okay, fine. But if you have not taken human greed and healed that level of human consciousness, people will hoard other stuff. They will find ways to control people without money. So it's learning to heal our consciousness. That's what mature spiritual beings do. They learn that money isn't the problem. Greed is the problem. We don't, sort of blame things, the external world. We learn to take responsibility for our inner world. That's when the shift will occur. Every single thing, every technology can have a dual purpose. It can be used in good ways and bad ways. Money can be used in a hell of a good way. Money can be used and abused. And this is why a lot of people have bad relationships with it, because they see other people abusing money and the power that comes with that. And you say to yourself, I don't want that power. I don't want to abuse people. That's not power. That's literally you're abusing something. It's no different from a religious abuse or sexual abuse. To abuse your strength, your power, your spiritual powers, it's no longer spiritual. It's like love. The moment you put a condition on it, it's no longer unconditional. There are not different levels to love. There is one level, and it's called unconditional. The moment you attach a condition, it becomes a fear. It's no longer love. All right? So, with your astral projection practice, get very clear about what you want to do. Understand the purpose behind it. And then every day, it's the practice. So when you go to bed at night, the practice begins. So you want to make the last thought before you go to bed a loving thought about that practice. If your last thought before going to sleep is actually thoughts of, fearful thoughts of anxiety, you're anxious about something that's going to take place tomorrow, you're stressed about something that's going to take place tomorrow, or you're obsessing about the past. This is the practice of presence, because when we're not present, literally the fear mind is having us do one of those three things, either obsessing over the past, or stressing, or being anxious about the future. That is literally what the fear mind does. When you hear me say the fear mind, I'm referring to the ego, but the Eastern traditional definition of ego, not Western psychology. Western psychology defines the ego as being our character, our personality, whereas Eastern philosophy traditionally suggests the ego is the fear mind, the part that has literally cut itself off from the one reality of love. Okay, so let's get clear. So when you hear me use the word ego, that's how I'm defining ego. The fear mind, the part that's cut you off from the one reality of love. Okay? So when I get into bed at night, I have my journal, I have a notepad, and I have pens next to my bed. I also have, I think I might have it with me, a little light like this one. Not the blinky bit. Like this, it's red. Can anybody know why? Because if I wake up and I switch on this phone in the middle of the night, let's say that screen in particular, kills melatonin instantly. All right? Instantly just starts to destroy melatonin. Melatonin is very important. So the red spectrum does not damage melatonin production at all. It's the blue spectrum. So the red spectrum does not damage it. So when I wake up in the middle of the night to take notes or to journal, I even have a pen. I should have brought the pen, where there's literally a pen with a red light built into the element, and I can literally just sort of journal with this pen like this. And it's really convenient. So I'll journal in the nighttime when I wake up, because typically what happens is we've been conditioned over a lifetime to be very, very forgetful about what happens nocturnally at night. So we wake up and sometimes with dream recall, we might get up and go to the toilet or to get a drink of water. By the time we get back in bed, it usually takes about 4 minutes to completely forget the dream that we just woke from. How many people have that experience in life? All right? How many of you are recalling 2 or 3 dreams every single day? Ish, or you are, okay. For those of you who are not recalling dreams at the moment, this needs to become a new practice for you, and the journaling will help you do that, okay? So when you're journaling, you're basically saying to your inner self, you're saying to your subconscious, your guides, your higher self, I pay attention and I'm willing to show up, okay? When you don't practice journaling, you're saying to those same agents of consciousness, I don't pay attention and I'm not currently willing to show up. Okay, so journaling is one of the first practices that, whether you're doing lucid dreaming or astral projection work, it is one of the key practices. You'll notice after just a week of keeping a journal, your dream recall will go up. You'll start recalling more dreams on a daily basis. You will start to have the dreams become more clear and vivid, to the point where you maybe go from just where you have the visions of dreams to where you actually start hallucinating sounds, taste, smell, and a sense of touch. And it gets to the point to where those things become so strong, you start to detect that you're dreaming. And that's when you can literally start to become lucid, conscious within the dream itself. All right? Now, most people who astral project on a regular basis come to the conclusion that most dreaming actually takes place within the etheric body or the astral body. A lot of times you could literally have your conscious awareness shift into your astral body. You're unconsciously roaming the astral planes. You could be sitting like on a park bench on the astral, completely immersed in a dream, the thought form of a dream. I've had astral residents come by and sort of, poke me and, hello, is anybody in there? Because they know we're literally in a psychic space of our own minds. And I've had astral residents literally wake me up to the reality that I'm actually on the astral planes already. Okay? So parts of our being are acting independently during sleep. And it's learning how to get, sort of conscious of that so we can start to do more things with that as a practice. Okay? All right, so that's bringing us up to 11:30, which is, we got a little bit late start. I think it was about 1:15, so it's not quite the 90-minute mark. 90-minute mark is usually where I like to take breaks. So we're going to be in another 10 minutes, just wrapping this segment up. So journaling is very important, and I want you to, one of the things when you either, during lunch today, if you don't already have one, is to go out and buy yourself a notepad or a journal. And the notepad and journal, there's a distinction here. The notepad is for when you wake up in the middle of the night and you're just scribbling. You're just, sort of writing information out, drawing stuff, and it doesn't need to look pretty. All right? No aesthetics whatsoever. The journal is to when, after you've reviewed what you put in that notepad, you're saying to yourself, okay, what of this information that I've journaled is actually feels like it's a message, feels like there's something important. That goes in the journal. Because sometimes it's just noise. Some of it's just noise. Some of it's just your brain processing stuff. Okay? Your consciousness on some level processing stuff. It doesn't all need to be journaled. So when in the middle of the night, it's just bullet points, okay? I wake up from a dream and I literally just bullet point the environment, bullet point how I felt, bullet point, the main theme. And then when I wake up in the morning, I'll be able to flesh out most of the dream just from those few bullet points. And if I've done that 3, 4, 5, 6 times throughout the night, spontaneously every time I wake up, I can then determine, okay, what of that really is a message from source, a message from my guides, a message from my higher self? What if that is a message from my own subconscious? That could be important. I'm going to journal about that now. That gets transferred into the actual journal, all right? So you have notepad and a journal. Not everything goes in the journal. And then you can come back to the journal. You can draw things from the experience. You can flesh it out even more. You can even color code things. You can maybe have a color code key at the beginning. When I write in a blue pen, and then suddenly I switch to a black pen during journaling, the black relates to this, and that way you can start to make connections easier within your dream journal because you're keeping a color key at the beginning. There are these clicker pens that have sometimes 4, 5, 6 different colors inside them. Grab yourself one of those from a stationery shop. They're very useful tools. So literally have a color key system at the beginning of the journal, and that way you can literally find that data more easily and make the links. Because one of the links you want to make is with dream recall and your dream practice is with things that are called dream signs. A dream sign is something that keeps reoccurring in your dream that typically doesn't occur in your waking life. One of them could be communicating with a deceased relative. How many of you have had contact in dreams with deceased relatives? Why? Because it's an excellent medium. In most cases, you're already out of your body. You're just in a dream on another level of reality. Your loved one can easily communicate with you. Okay? So if you're regularly having experiences with one particular deceased loved one, then that becomes a dream sign. Okay? And that can become something that you think about during the daytime and you set the intent. Whenever I see this person, I will do a reality test. Does anyone know what a reality test is? So a reality test is where you do something like pull a finger and ask yourself a question, try to push one hand through another hand while asking a question, maybe holding your breath while asking the question, because when you're doing that in physical reality, what's happening is, if I'm holding my breath, I'm expecting that if this is a dream, so I'll ask the question, and when something unusual is happening, I'll say something like, in my mind, am I dreaming or awake right now? If I'm awake, I'm going to need to breathe soon. If I'm dreaming, because my dream body does not have lungs, my astral body does not have lungs, I will be able to completely pinch my nose, continue to pinch my nose for a good hour or more, and it's not going to affect me. So it's basically you're testing what level of reality you're actually experiencing in that moment. And you might think, well, how's that going to serve me? Because a lot of times we're not present enough, even in physical reality, to detect what state we're in. State that I'm actually feeling stressed right now, or put another label to it. I could actually be feeling angry right now. I could be actually feeling hate right now. I could be feeling disappointment right now, but I'm labeling it I'm literally pigeonholing everything under one label. When we're more present with ourselves, we're able to actually detect the true feeling instead of always that catch-all sort of one label. So the more we can get present while awake, the more present you will start to become within dreams, within unconscious OBEs, out-of-body experiences that are already taking place every single night. It'll start making your life a lot easier because you're already probably thinking, well, how am I going to practice any of this stuff? My life's already busy enough. You probably didn't come here for any other reason but because synchronicity brought you here one way or another. You might have had your doubts, but you arrived anyhow. Your guides kicked you up the backside and you arrived. You were here. No matter what doubt you had, you arrived. Okay? So honor that. So journaling is really, really important. I can't stress it enough. It's important. Every single night, journal. Okay? These kind of things are great little aids in helping you sort of make sure you maintain melatonin levels throughout the night. A good eye mask can also help do the same. It keeps, to blackout levels. You might then think, well, if I take the eye mask off and light comes in, especially in the early hours, the later it gets, such as towards 7, 8 o'clock in the morning where there's a lot of light now, well, you can then do things like mnemonics. You can create like a mnemonic peg system to where you can say, okay, when I wake up in the night, I won't even have to take off my eye mask, or I can literally just write in the dark, pitch black, because most of us can do that. It may not be very pretty when we wake up, but most of us can do it. Or you can create a mnemonic system where you're literally doing something like you're putting a name to a number, making an association. Like number 1 could be none because it rhymes. Number 2, shoe. Number 3, tree. Number 4, door. And then when you wake up from a dream, you can associate the dream you had with a none. And then the second dream you can associate with 2, which is shoe. And you can exaggerate the shoe in the dream to make the connection. And then when you wake up in the morning proper and you review the dreams, you say, okay, what was I doing with the none? That was right. What about with the shoe? The second dream? That was that. Okay? So you don't even have to take off the eye mask. You can do it that way. And then you can then write things down in your journal. Okay? So there's ways that you can keep the melatonin going. Why is melatonin important? Melatonin, it's been well researched, and the research suggests that melatonin aids in dream formation, helping remember that you're already dreaming. All of us dream every single night. All of us have out-of-body experiences every single night. We're just not conscious of it for most of us. Those who are conscious of 2 or 3 dreams, it's the tip of the iceberg to what's actually happening. In the deep delta sleep, most of us are having out-of-body experiences, deep out-of-body experiences to other levels of reality. And in a lot of cases, we are very conscious on those levels, and then we return to the physical level of consciousness, and we completely forget that we were actually conscious on another level of reality. All right? That's what's taking place in most cases. All right? So the journaling is really important. Any questions so far? Nope.
Yeah, I'll say it's just this physical reality that we live in now as well. Could you say that's like a dream as well, almost? In the universe.
Okay. I want to make a distinction here. Okay, that's the type of question that can be brought about later, but I'm going to make a distinction with that particular question because it's important. That's what's called a metaphysical principle. Okay? And it's really important to understand this because there's a difference between a metaphysical principle and a physical law. Okay? Metaphysical principle would say that this level of reality is an illusion or a shared dream. But sometimes people, when they hear things like that, it might make them feel, then this is insignificant. The spiritual realm is the important realm. I don't even really have to be here. I don't even have to really show up. People actually do that when they hear that. It shatters their illusion to the point where they're like, they don't take it seriously or they don't feel that it's significant enough. It's not enough. I don't really have to do my healing work here after all. I can wait till after I die and then I'll be with my guides and we can just bathe in healing all the time. There's a huge difference between a metaphysical principle and a physical law. The physical law is that this is what physical feels like. It is real to our physical senses. It is real to this level of our conditioned, grounded consciousness. A metaphysical principle is designed, the purpose is to help us transform this level of reality. All right? So on a metaphysical level, on a spiritual level, on a non-physical level, that is true to your higher self. But it is not your truth when you're here in this realm. It is the truth to the non-physical aspect of who you are. But here, you adhere to physical laws. Even if this whole reality is a mental reality, a reality taking place within consciousness, consciousness being a formless, intelligent substance, no matter how physical a reality feels, if it's taking place within the one true reality of consciousness, which is formless, then all of it is actually taking place as a virtual reality. It's just the physical law says, this is what physical feels like. When you're in this reality, this is what it feels like. And we use this physicality for a reason, for growing. It's dense, it sort of slows down the feedback loop depending on what state of consciousness that we're in. Okay? So I just feel it's important that when we're dealing with metaphysical principles, we approach them in the way they were meant to be approached. The idea that this is an illusion is to help us transform this reality by remembering that, getting the perspective that the only thing truly real is love. Okay, that's what's at the basis of the idea of illusion. Fear is an illusion. It is an illusion that literally keeps us separated from the one true reality of love. And these metaphysical principles are designed to help reveal the love that's always there beyond the illusion of fear. Does that make sense? Okay? That's a real important distinction. Let's take a break. When we come back, I'm going to teach you a few astral projection techniques, and we're actually going to lie down either on the beanbags and the mats, and we'll turn down the lights and we'll do some practice.